So Caridad and then Sarita. Um, Sadita, thank you for that. And Caridad, thank you for that. Caridad, can you say a little bit about just writing it and maybe just being a playwright right now?
Oh, wow, that's a huge question. Writing it, Brian Herrera contacted me and said, "Are you keen on doing a play at home thing?" And I was like, "Yes." And so then I just sat down and kind of just let it spill. I mean, I had an idea around. He said, "Check out, the other plays that are up already from other writers," and so I did. I sort of take a browse through, and then I just, I've done a lot of work since around 2013, not exclusively, but part of my work has been around writing very open texts and allowing, one or more performers to sort of enter those texts and score them differently. And given that this is a play at home, I just thought, well, then I don't know who's going to be at home, so there might be one person at least. That was sort of my goal. One person, maybe a pet. I don't know. So I was like, well, then it seemed kind of odd to me to write characters, in this format. And because I'm already, that's a side of my voice as a playwright already works in this mode. I thought this feels. I sort of knew that was the mode that I was going to be writing in, and then yeah, and then the title came very quickly. I started with the title, so I wanted to write something that felt hopeful, weirdly, maybe to make myself feel hopeful, and just maybe provide some solace somehow. Yeah, and open enough that it could be interpreted in multiple ways. So there's a lot of space on the page and stuff like that. And being a playwright right now means, I don't know. It means, I mean, it's interesting. I think that it's like, how do we, when our form is essentially about presence, how do we deal with presence in a different way? I've just been thinking a lot about. We have the tools that we have as artists, so how do we reimagine those tools and rework those tools? I mean, I feel like a lot of them. I mean, weirdly, this may seem very strange, but because of a lot of my work, not all of it again, but a lot of it has sort of a hyperlink kind of quality in its dramaturgy, and um, I've been, since around the year 2000, I've been interested in writing plays that deal with the virtual space in some way. So it's sort of interesting to go, oh, well, now here we are. Okay. And it's funny because it makes me hungry to both go even further virtual or like to VR or anti-virtual altogether. And so I'm sort of in an either or mode as a playwright, but I'm also, I think, a chance to, from a citizenship and practitioner level position, a chance to rethink, and many people have been and been doing for a long time, but a chance to rethink the structures that we've been working in, a lot of us, and to greater and lesser degrees, whether in resistance or whether in opposition or whatever words we want to use, but to really rethink those structures and to, I mean, this may sound like a very weird thing to say, but I feel like the last thing I want in a weird way is for things to go back to same old, same old. I actually think that there's an opportunity in this mess, in this tragedy that we're in, that we're living through, very close to death, to understand that we're always close to death, and that when we create structures, how do we take care of each other? How do we take care of everybody? So that's just a lot on my mind, and I feel like it's maybe. I know a lot of people have been in the trenches with this, but I also think maybe it's time to really with the little tools that we have and with the amazing resources that we have just as human beings to be able to do that.
Yeah. Sarita, can you talk a little bit about? I'm trying to find you. Oh, here, there you are. Can you just say a little bit about? I mean, you and I have talked kind of offline about just being a creative in this moment, and when you read the script, you were like, "Yes." Can you just talk a little bit about that moment, reading it, and what resonated with you?
Yeah, you know, I everything happened so abruptly, as many of you all know. I'm seeing so many faces here, and you were either you were in performance, you were in rehearsals, you were just getting started to start a rehearsal process, and you know, so many of us that are here in this kind of Zoom community right now, where that's our divine that's our divine gift from the universe. And so I think it was challenging at first, grappling with like what's all happening, and trying to make sense of time and space and uncertainty. And then I think as things were just changing daily, um it was a moment of profound surrender, that this was something much bigger than us, obviously, and now we're in it. And I guess I initially, in the beginning, before I read Better Maybe, I was already um, inviting myself to lean fully into the discomfort, into mourning, into this understanding that the past is now the past, and that we're now entering a new time and space. And what will this mean for artists? What will this mean for communities as a whole? And so I I was reached out by many colleagues and beautiful souls, and I think we were all grasping towards something to hold on to. And I found myself just wanting to retreat, just wanting to like pull the covers over and just be still. And I wasn't feeling called to record any monologues. I wasn't feeling called to participate in various projects. And then Michael, we talked, and there was just a lot of grappling big life questions. Caridad's right, like death. Um, what am I doing with my life? Where am I on this journey? Where do I want to go now? What matters most? And some things were really painful to have to reconcile with, questioning my artistry, questioning myself as a creator and maker. So then when you sent Better Maybe, and I remember it came off of you wanting me to do something, and I was struggling even in that project. So you sent Better Maybe, I clicked on it, and I'm a huge, I love Caridad's work. Um, and I opened it, and it just felt like someone understood me. It felt like suddenly I could breathe again. Suddenly I could cry. I could touch upon the parts of me that maybe aren't that beautiful, you know? And it felt like a quarantine love letter to us. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know what this experience is going to be like. It still feels, this is still all new. I'm used to having an audience respond. I'm used to hearing breath. So it was kind of a challenge to kind of make my way through the journey of it. But it felt like a love letter to all of us. And it just spoke so deeply to me, and the interpretation that I was receiving from Caridad's work, I think that I kind of just allowed it to be that. So that's kind of,
Yeah.
those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Sarita.
Oh,
We still have some few more minutes. If anyone wants to ask a question, you can type it into the chat box below. We have a lot of people on this call, and so we'll try and go through the chat box. But if that ends up being challenging, you can just wave the old-fashioned way, and I'll unmute you with my godlike powers as the host. Caridad and Sarita, one thing I just for me the piece it's the first time I felt kind of, I don't know how to say this, but like present in it in a way, because this whole thing feels like such liminal space, and it feels like we're in the middle of something where there's like I had the honor of getting to talk with Isabel Allende last week because of Caridad, because I got to direct Caridad's play last year, and I got to meet Isabel then. And she mentioned how there was like a before, there's what we're in now, and then there's going to be an after, and we just don't know what that after is. And there's something about art, I think, that lets us process the present in some way, and this was such a treat that way. So Sarita, I really felt you were speaking to me through the camera in part of the play. What is your experience performing in front of a camera video audience?
I mean, gosh, well, this is the first go, and I will be so honest, I was terrified because again, there's no exchange happening, and we're also in a medium that it's live. It's this isn't television or film, where even you'd have the luxury now every, like, being in contact with people, I think is a luxury now, because I miss everyone. I can't help but get teary because I miss touch. And so even with film and television, you've got a whole crew, you've got your director, you're creating together. And so it was interesting. I had to like lower the Zoom window. And so, because, we're all here and I love you all, but I had to lower it, and I had to trust that this tiny little thing with the green light, that somehow I've got to figure out how to speak truth and just try to connect. And I had no idea what that was going to translate on your end, honestly. You don't know, with a camera, you don't know how big to be, how small to be. And so I think I just kind of, in this medium, because I know many more of us, our artist circles, this is kind of the new frontier. So if there's anything I could recommend, it's now to just speak truthfully from your core. I mean, that's probably the greatest acting performance lesson, is how to just be. And I hope that translates on the other side. But it's a little weird. And everyone's muted, so I just see a lot of like.
Totally. I'm going to read some comments. The visuals of zooming through trees stood out beautifully to me. We looking down at Mother Nature, mesmerized by it, by its beauty and what we've done to it. I loved it. I'll take that with me tonight. Not a question, sorry. This was so beautiful and such a balm for our souls. Bless you all for sharing. It's like performing on TV. It worked. So I have another big question for both of you. I'm not even sure how to formulate it necessarily, but in talking about Caridad mentioning like we don't want to go back to the way things were, this sort of just as usual. But I think one question, at least for me, running a small theater, and I think as a playwright and as an actor and producer, is what will the landscape look like when we get back? Both from like the big umbrella, like business side, like will there be things that we can kind of go back to, and then also just the very pragmatic, like when are we going to feel comfortable being back in a space like that? I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts that you're willing to share about that. And it's also okay to say no. Say like, I don't have any thoughts about that.
I have all sorts of thoughts about that. I mean, I feel like I saw that somebody whom I don't know, but named Colin Thompson, great Twitter follow. I've been saying this on Twitter for a while. I mean, I feel like we have to embrace audio drama, podcast drama, hybrid spaces that it starts in audio and then it becomes a print thing and then it becomes like a video thing. Like I think the transmedia is where we'll be for a while, and I think the longer we put that off, the harder it's going to be to adjust. I also think it's a frontier that many practitioners have been a part of for a long time, so why not join other transmedia people who have been doing this and work with them, I also think that thinking about, my friend Chris Good talks about that when he makes a piece, and when he's trying to boil down what theater is, it's like how you meet someone, right? It's what's the encounter that you're crafting. So I think the idea of encounter is always going to be there. So it's just, what are the tools for your encounter? Well, it may be this tool for now, and it may be a podcast, or it may be so. And I think that if we want to keep the business side of this alive, and we want to sustain our artists, like pay them something, because clearly the government doesn't really care about us. So then I think we have to create platforms to keep gathering, even in this way, telling non-stories, doing a fun dance on TikTok, whatever it takes, you know what I mean? And I think that through that, I think maybe what will happen is, I'm not saying like all the old forms are going to die and it's not going to be over, because I think theater is just ancient form and it's always going to be around. But I was thinking the other day about ancient Greece for some reason, because I was thinking about like, oh my God, it's like we're back when it was like if you're reading theater history, it's like we're back when it was like around the the ritual space, and then one actor stood up and started to, and I was like, maybe we're back there, like we're back and like one actor stood up, and it was like, can we try two? Can we do three? You know what I mean? I think it's going to be like that. And I think that, because the other thing I will say is that I feel very strongly about this even before all this. I just feel our field needs to learn. I know I'm not speaking about Ubuntu because, my God, you guys know this, but I feel like a lot of people don't. Needs to be nimble. We need to figure out ways to be nimble and keep being nimble. It's the only way we're going to survive. And I think this thing of being beholden to massive structures, that can be very comfortable sometimes. It's just going to be more red tape. You know what I mean? It's going to be more like, I mean, I spoke to an artistic director the other day, and they were like, well, let's think about 2024. And it's like, dude, like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 2024. I don't know if we're going to even be around. It's me. I don't want to be thinking about 2024. Like, I want to make stuff now, and I want to, or just gather with people now in these ways to dream and think. I think our job as cultural workers is to dream society anew, and it's to do the soul work of society. So I feel like when society is breaking, then we've got an extra job to do. So I feel like that's never going to go away. And I think, but keeping nimble about it is going to maybe save us all, and maybe make us think about that it's actually the people and not the buildings. No dissing the buildings, because some of them are very beautiful, but it's really the people that make the thing happen. And we can do it, on the back of a truck, or like over a megaphone, or over, outside somebody's window, calling out, David Greenspan we were talking the other day, and he was like, maybe I'll start singing out my window. And I was like, great idea. And maybe that will be my performance. Like, awesome. I mean, I think there are ways that we can sort of create, and I think within that, creating structures that already exist, that are swift and fleet and light, because it means that we can carry them with us. And for me, it's really important that the play is in the audience's hands, which is one of the things that excited me about Play at Home, because I thought, well, it's in the audience's hands. It's exactly what I want. I want you to take it with you. That's at the end of the day. Even in a conventional setting, it happens in the audience's brain. Do you know what I mean? So, and you take it with you, and then you make of it what you will at home or in the car, or just hunker down. You start talking about it, and that's really the play. Mm-hmm. That other thing that happens after the play. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've been thinking about how to make sure we remember to stay nimble, and if we can do, and not wait to not be nimble again, because I think that's not healthy, for one thing. I want our artists to be working, and if not working, to at least be in places where they feel cared for.
Yeah. Thank you, Caridad. Sarita, do you have any thoughts that you want to add?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna practice some radical self-acceptance right now and compassion, in that I'm noticing and discovering right now in these times that my ideas and thoughts and beliefs are changing daily. And part of that, but there is a core that is rooted. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things we have to acknowledge as a community, and as Caridad said, business. And what has been challenging in the past is seeing things like art making, theater, the things that, theater, regional theater that I've been doing for many years now, that is my bread and butter. It pays my bills. I'm grateful. I love creating the work, and I love being able to create with so many amazing humans. But sometimes it feels as though we're on this kind of capitalist like locomotive. And so my bigger questions are around like how, I don't know, we should go back to what we've done. I think I have so many thoughts. One is, can we all be still? Can we all sit in the stillness? Can we be still and sit with ourselves? Like really sit with ourselves, not be driven to create new content. And like, I felt like there was a slight pause at the top of lockdown, or at the top of our sheltering in place, that felt like, oh, I'm sitting in this pause. And then boom, it was as though I woke up one morning and my inbox was flooded with, we got to create, we got to do, we got to go. And I'm like, whoa, could we all just, what are we creating towards? Is this a reactionary creation that we're doing, productivity that we're trying to do? Because overnight, we all lost work. We all lost our livelihoods. And, I agree with Caridad. I think we have to learn to adapt. I think what is on the horizon, we still don't know, but we do have to adapt. We have to be open and willing to try different things, and sometimes return back to what was done. Let's create storytelling. I think it's like the core is storytelling. How we do it, we just have to be adaptable, and we have to support one another. I think the sustainability question, that's the hard thing, right? If we had universal health care, if we as artists didn't have to worry about how we're going to pay rent, but we could be those like active citizen artists of the world, you know, and collaborate in a civic way and be able to bring, you know, thought-provoking storytelling. I think of like the mobile shakes units that go out into communities. It's like returning back to common spaces, right? Like doing readings or a performance at a library or a park, you know, taking, I think that's why Ubuntu is so prime right now in this time. We know how to take over other spaces. We know how to adapt. We know how to like adjust and see innovation as a possibility. But to be totally honest, I'm struggling right now with the old systems, the old ways of doing. I don't want to return back to normal. I mean, that was destructive. And so we're seeing this ugly blemish on the country right now. And I don't know what the future holds for us as artists. And I've been very quiet about sharing these kinds of views because I want to be sensitive to what everyone else is experiencing. And I commend all my artists who I love that are creating work and fundraising and doing all of that and wanting to get the seasons back up in the fall and in the winter and spring. But I think, I don't know, I want to be hopeful that we can be brave to lead off into the horizon as something new. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Oh, it was, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Sarita. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Good. Do you have any two-person plays coming up?
Ooh.
I think Caridad, I think that one's
For me? Is that a question for me? Two-person plays?
Yeah.
I've written a couple, you know, it's funny that I haven't written a lot of two-handers. I wrote one in 2013 called Archipelago, which is actually, that's a play that's been very instrumental toward, I call it sort of the next phase of my writing. So that sort of marked a certain move toward a different direction while I've been doing other things. And I think Red Bike can be done with two, and actually most productions of that play have been done with two, although it was originally conceived as a solo, but it's also been done with 4 and 5 because I've scored it in different ways. Yeah, you know, Red Bike is probably the most recent two-hander. Functionally, that two-person score really works, and I discovered that. In a rehearsal process.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I'm really interested in three-handers. I'm really interested in actually right now.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, for us, in terms of what we're trying to do on Zoom every Friday night, so far we've only been brave enough to do one-person shows. But there's also something I find particularly wonderful and kind of going back to the basics about storytelling, and even like the reading, like the way Sarita did, reading the stage directions. There's something quite transformational about that, and just what the power of hearing a good play kind of read in that way that I find really, really touching.
Hi.
Hi, Wilma. Go ahead. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I really don't have a question, but I just find this medium very interesting, and I think I really love how it was person in a box, basically, which is we're feeling, because when I think of isolation, I also remember the senior citizens in our community, which are always feel isolated, or people who can't get out naturally every day, and now people who are able are at home, or or freaking out about, okay, how do I go outside? What do I do? What do I have? The steps you have to take in order to survive these days is very interesting. And I love that you wrote about hugs. That is so important. The touch. Oh my God. I said, yeah, that's what I miss. I miss hugging my sister. I miss hugging family and friends, and we're not allowed to do that. And I think, okay, so what's going to happen after they lift this isolation that we are in, which after reading about the 1918 Spanish flu, it wasn't just 1 year, it actually was 2 years. And so just to think about 2 years, you start thinking about, okay, who can I let into my into this isolation circle that's been created, who is it safe to let in, and we want to say family, but that's not necessarily so, because everybody, if you're working still with the public, then it kind of puts you at odds. It's so very interesting. I really like that whole thing about hugs.
Thank you, Wilma. Does anyone else have a question? Let me see, there's a comment here. This was my first return to theater in some time. I'm inspired and moved as always by Sarita's soul and presence. Sharing the silences were particularly powerful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well,
like to say something.
Yeah, please, Lindsay, go ahead.
If we are.
Lindsay.
Hi, Sadita. I loved it. Thank you. I just love to share, I think for Ubuntu in general and going forward and what you're exploring of how to bring your art to the people, that for me, I'm in a space in my life, I think I was the only person that had a toddler popping in and out of their screen, where theater is really not accessible because it would require so much organization, etc. So pandemic and house lockdown aside, I find this medium to be so compelling because it makes it accessible to me. I would love to see something like this go forward, because there's a lot of people in their lives, whether they're older or they have kids, who going to the theater isn't, it is a massive event in their lives. And this makes it, I can listen. And my daughter was sitting here when Sarita was crying at the end. She was like, she's sad, and she went to the screen and kissed the screen because she saw she was sad, so she got to interact with it as well. So for me, it was really compelling just in general to be able to share it and access it with my family.
Thank you for that. No, I think that's, well, there's a lot about this that I hope we can somehow take into the world where we're not just on Zoom. So thank you, Lindsay. Is anyone else? Anyone else at all? Oh yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
I just think about how amazing it is that this audience is from all over the country, right? And that we could come together in this one space and share this experience together, right? Whether it's North Carolina or, just from one end of the country to the other. And that's sort of miraculous, really. So that's really lovely. So thank you.
Thank you. Here's a question. Great art often uses the constraints of the medium. How can we make great Zoom art using the constraints to our advantage? And I think that's something we've been talking about and trying to figure out. And then here's another comment. Thank you for sharing this play and for your beautiful performance, Sarita. I felt deeply touched by the loss, the joy, the hope. I wonder how we can continue building more ways to feel connection through this virtual space, to offer other forms of touch that are not physical, but that can also heal. And yes, to the increased accessibility this medium provides for all parts of our community. Thank you, Sharon. All right, you guys, we're at our hour, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Please join us next week. We'll be doing this every week, and you can check out more on our website. And I promise I'll get better and better at this whole tech thing and getting the right links out to you that are not broken. And if we can all just kind of wave goodbye and send cheers up to Sarita and Caridad.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the play just.
Hi, Uma.
We love you, Sarita.
We love you,
Sarita.
Carla. Oh, Karen.
So great to see everybody.
I deserve it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Sarita, that's wonderful.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Love you, Sadita.
Love you too, Mom and Dad.
Amor, amor, amor.
Sarita.
Amor, amor, amor.